Our coverage continues now with Guy Perron. He's a retired Israeli Air Force pilot and a critic of Prime Minister Netanyahu's handling of the Gaza conflict. Mr. Perron, it's good to have you with us. Maybe I can just start by asking for your reaction to what we're seeing happening in just the past few hours. News of Hamas saying yes to this proposed ceasefire, these deals. What do you think of this?
Well, I think that between the Hamas confusion and the Israeli government confusion, we, the Israeli public, don't know anything anymore, because up until a while ago, the prime minister, the Hamas was insisting on having a partial plan, and the prime minister said, no, only a full plan for all the hostages. And then they switched parts, and now the prime minister, it seems to us in Israel, that it's true that he's under a lot of pressure, but I am afraid that the biggest pressure, and the one that he's going to give up to, is the pressure from within his government, from the extreme right-wing ministers, who made it very clear that if he does not go ahead with this conquering of the entire Gaza Strip, and he goes for a hostage deal, they will make his government fall. So at this point in time, we are hopeful that he is indeed going to make some kind of a deal, but we're not sure of it at all.
Mr. Perron, let me ask you, is the Prime Minister, do you think he's listening to the public? I mean, the public has been protesting. They want to see some sort of a deal. They want to see the remaining living hostages released. Is Netanyahu, is he hearing that?
Unfortunately not. And, day before yesterday, there was the biggest demonstration in the history of Israel. Probably more than 1 million people stormed the streets with the same demand: make a hostage deal, stop the war. Myself, I am leading a group of over 1,000 ex-Israeli Air Force pilots. Mm-hmm. We were also in front of the Ministry of Defense demanding the same thing. All the polls are showing that between 75 and 80% of the Israeli public is demanding the stop of the war with a hostage deal.
But you haven't made a difference.
Even the polls that are showing...
Mr. Martin, you haven't made a difference, though, have you?
Difference for, they say that those kind of protests don't make a difference for the leaders until they do. So we're hoping that somehow... because also the voters, all the polls are showing that the coalition, Netanyahu's coalition's voters, are also, the majority of them are pushing for an end to the war with a deal. So I don't know how long he can, execute a plan against the will of the majority of the country.
What do you say to the fact that your prime minister has called dissent coming from the military, from people such as yourself, as being unforgivable, and threatened to even dismiss reservists who speak out?
Well, we're used to hearing all these kind of blames and fakes about the people who are the most patriotic, the most serving people in the history of Israel, people who've given many, many years in the service and fought the war, and he is, talking and giving us bad names, while at the same time, he's very busy trying to push a law that will release tens of thousands of Orthodox young people perfectly able to go to the army. He's pushing for their, so that they don't go to the army. So it's become a real absurd here.
It's hard to know, though, what serving Israeli military officers and soldiers think about this, because they're not allowed to publicly express political opinions, right? So when we hear about this growing rift between Israel's military leadership and Netanyahu's government over Gaza, I mean, we're shooting in the dark a little bit, aren't we? I mean, how big is this rift?
No, we know, you're right, that the people who are currently in service, and definitely those in Gaza, are not expressing themselves, but we know what the feelings are. We speak to a lot of those people who are doing the reserve. Many of them, when called for another round of reserve in Gaza, are not showing up. The government and different units, battalions, it's just unbelievable. Today, they post on social media requests for people to go join the fighting people in Gaza. So they're desperate. So we know what the feeling is. And you're right. The fact that the chief of staff, the top commander of the army, expressed his objection to the plan of the prime minister creates a big damage to the morale of the soldiers. You can imagine that soldiers out in the Gaza, when they hear about the disagreement of their top commander, who sends them to missions that he's not complete, that he's against, this creates a huge confusion and a damage to their morale.
Let me ask you about the hostages before we run out of time. You have repeatedly called for a deal to bring the hostages home. It's estimated that there are still 20 living hostages in Gaza. Do they really have much leverage now in the war planning mechanisms of Israel?
Well, the chief of staff again said when he was asked by the government to execute this plan of conquering the entire city of Gaza, he said this is a death trap for the hostages, also for many Israeli soldiers that will try to do it. Everybody knows that the idea of, on one hand, conquering or destroying Hamas to the last soldier cannot be at the same time saving those 20 miserable hostages who have been there for nearly 2 years. It doesn't go together. And this is what the people in Israel, more than anything, are really, really, really angry about, is that the government, in a cold-blooded way, saying to the army to execute a plan that will most certainly leave those hostages dead.
Okay. Retired Israeli Air Force pilot and reserve captain Guy Perron. Mr. Perron, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, sharing your thoughts with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bert.